everything that has water in it can grow mold and bacteria. Some mold and bacteria, like penicillin, is beneficial. Most of it's not. If you have a cut, an open wound, like just a tiny little cut, and you use a lotion that has bacterial or mold contamination because it wasn't properly preserved, whatever that mold and bacteria is can get inside your system, making you very sick or leaving you disfigured. It doesn't happen often.
This is Medspa Mayhem, the podcast all about the chaotic world of medical aesthetics. From Botox to lasers to IV bars, learn how to tell real versus fake, legal versus illegal, and safe versus potentially deadly. Hear the crazy stories inside the med spa world and find out what questions to ask and how to spot the people cutting corners. I'm your host, Dr. Kate D. Together, we explore the wild west of medicine that is the aesthetics industry. Hi, this is Dr. Kate D, and I'm speaking today with Anne-Marie Faiola. She is the CEO and founder of Bramble Berry Handcraft Provisions, based in Bellingham, Washington, not too far from me. Anne-Marie got her Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice and Psychology in 1999 and went to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland for her MBA and did a really cool entrepreneurial fellowship or master's, I guess, at MIT. You can talk maybe a little bit more about that. But anyway, she is a powerhouse of business and sells do-it-yourself soaps and other kind of skincare stuff. And we're going to talk all about that industry and the ins and outs of it. So Anne-Marie, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. So I'm really interested. I know you're not here to talk about criminology, but I'm very curious to know how you leapt from that world to soap making and being the soap queen. So can you talk a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are?
Oh, absolutely. So I've always been a really crafty child, was like a very crafty child. And I started making soap when I was 12. I started my very first business selling Russian dwarf hamsters when I was about 14 and kept selling soap all throughout high school and then all throughout college. And my chosen profession was criminology, focus on psychology. And I really wanted to go into the FBI. And while I was waiting to interview for the FBI, I worked for a police department. I worked in medium security prisons and I worked in minimum security prisons. And with my background in psychology, I just believed that every single person could and should be rehabilitated and everybody should be given a chance. And I got into the criminology system working in these prisons and recognized that actually this was a whole system. Like we had to start when the kids were in kindergarten and lower. We really had to be providing, food so they could learn properly. We had to be providing buses so they could get to school. Like it was a whole system that led to a life of crime. It wasn't like something that I could just solve. And so as I was working in the system, I started making soap a lot and selling it on the weekend when it was very clear that I was not a good fit as a correctional officer. My temperament is really happy and I like to make change, and big systems like prison industrial complex don't take change quickly and don't take it well. I started selling soap every weekend and then started teaching people how to make soap. And then eventually quit my job and founded brambleberry.com and soapqueen.com. We have a really big YouTube channel now called Soap Queen TV to teach people how to create their own handcrafted toiletries and the like. So they could, one, totally control their ingredients, two, have a part-time or a full-time income, and then three, find joy through creativity in their daily life.
Well, that sounds really, really fun. I have to confess, I've never made soap in my entire life, so I don't really know what that entails. But I know that there are so many different ingredients that can go into all those products. And so how so it's kind of similar to my industry where people are using all these products and you buy them and it's got this giant list of ingredients where it's so hard to know whether those are good for you or not, or even safe. Like, how do you know what ingredients? I mean, obviously we can we can take a course or something on your website, right? Or get a kit
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But how do you learn that, and how do you discern that, and how do you source your ingredients?
Well, so being a kitchen chemist or somebody that decides to make their own products at home is fun and it's easy. And a lot of the ingredients have a cross with cooking. So, for example,
Mm.
Brambleberry's olive oil is the same as a very large, well known olive oil company. And we buy it directly from the food grade source. Same with our almond oil. Same with a lot of the ingredients that we have. So, there's a large crossover with the food industry, which is, as you know, pretty highly regulated.
Hmm.
And in terms of regulation, the FDA regulates cosmetics as well. And so when Brambleberry goes to source, for example, we always make sure that the company is an FDA compliant facility, meaning they're registered with the FDA, and then that they have their SDS, their material safety data handling sheets, that they have all of their paperwork in order. And for every single batch that we get in, we then look at the product that comes in and make sure it's within the specs that it needs to be for that C of A, the certificate of analysis. And
Hmm.
for every single batch, we then upload all the paperwork, for example, to the Brambleberry site. So if you order the product, you can get that paperwork yourself. So that way you can always be cross-referencing. Because, for example, there's a lot of things that come in that look very similar. Like a bleached white beeswax might look a lot like an emulsifying wax, but they smell different. So if you
Hmm.
weren't physically inspecting them, if you put beeswax into your lotion formulation instead of an emulsifying wax, the emulsifying wax is what takes the water and the oil and it keeps it together. The beeswax will not do that. And so you could ruin a batch of lotion. So we
Ah.
inspect everything visually. And then our clients, our customers, who are all small scale manufacturers at some level, should also be doing that too.
Uh-huh. Okay. And so it's really interesting. What do we call it? The certificate of
This is C of A.
analysis. Yeah. I mean, there's one of those each drug you buy too.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like the GLP-1s, which now we can no longer compound those. Well, I mean, actually legally I can, because I'm a physician in Washington State, that's legal, but not that I'm doing that. I found that out recently though. But like, so you can buy a drug and it comes with this certificate, and you can see like its purity, how the strength, what's in it, right? A lot of drugs don't have that. They're being made kind of
On the fly.
illegally in a manufacturing facility that's not really FDA approved. It doesn't come with that. You can buy things off of the internet and it really, God knows what's in it. So it's not surprising that topical things or soaps or other fragrances and skincare ingredients would be very similar, right?
Absolutely. They do come with the certificate of analysis. And one of the things I like to always remind people, especially like, for example, with your GLP-1 example, the regulators, are finding entire warehouses of fake GLP-1s because
Mm-hmm.
it's such a black market. It's such an opaque market. There's so much money in it. And in that case, it's 100% illegal because you cannot legislate morality. You can't legislate good behavior. So people are knowingly, in that case, breaking the law so they can make money, right? It's
Right.
so you cannot legislate good behavior, but like at Brambleberry, for example, we have vendor scorecards. And so we score our vendors on
Mm-hmm.
everything from turnaround time to how fast their customer service is to what their regulatory is. Because we have a variety of regulatory stuff we have to follow in the
Mm-hmm.
cosmetic industry. And so we're always scoring our vendors so that way we can hopefully notice if there's a sea change. Did they get purchased by private equity and now they're being encouraged to cut corners, for example? We would hopefully notice that in the vendor scorecard, because how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Like their performance would start slipping in
Yes.
every area.
Yeah. And I mean, this goes back, I know I've mentioned my big project right now, the Medspa Board, on the podcast before. That is the thing. If someone's cutting one corner, chances are they're cutting all the corners, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that's their motivation, is maximizing, you know, their profit, they'll order from illegal places, they'll order dirty stuff, they'll not pay for quality product, they'll not pay for quality services. It's pretty terrible. So can you give an example in your industry of that kind of thing going on?
Oh,
And what?
sure. I mean, well, so for example, when you get say citric acid versus salt versus sugar, the only like visual inspection is not going to tell you which is which. And so now those
Right.
three items happen to cost very similar amounts, but like hyaluronic acid is incredibly expensive. And if you got
Yeah.
hyaluronic acid for the first time, you wouldn't be able to tell it apart from cornstarch.
Oh,
You would
really?
see, right. And so like you're buying it from some fly by nighter on Amazon that doesn't necessarily have the reviews or whatever. They could be selling you cornstarch. Now that would have a really high profit margin to be adulterating that product.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, I've really only seen hyaluronic acid as a serum
Hmm.
or in a filler. It's like a gel. It's always
Yeah.
been clear. So I've never seen that as like a purified powder. And
One of
actually,
the one of the talks I gave this year to a national convention was how to formulate your own hyaluronic acid serums, either with active ingredient of a shelf-stable vitamin C or a niacinamide. And
mm,
so at Brambleberry, you can buy a do-it-yourself kit to learn how to formulate with hyaluronic acid, or you can just buy the serum from us. Like we actually manufacture niacinamide serum and hyaluronic acid serum in bulk, and we sell it in like a whole drum, and cosmetic companies just take it and they pump it into their own containers
oh, wow. Well,
and
that's
yeah.
exciting because I mean, we that's really interesting. I mean, a lot of people use that as like a glide for microneedling.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, that's very
Mhm.
common. We tend to use a growth factor serum because hyaluronic acid
Of
alone
course.
won't really stimulate collagen. So, but that's really interesting. A lot of people would want to buy that probably directly from you. Okay,
That'd be
that's right. I
great.
didn't know
We'll
you
take
had
them.
that. Okay, that's crazy. So, I think the idea that you can't state legislate
Legislate.
morality,
Mhm.
that is for sure. I think that labeling, having a brand that represents high quality, having a brand that represents purity, clearly like very important. I would encourage everybody, if you are into do it yourself skincare, that's really critical because otherwise you could be putting total junk on your face.
You could be, and at the very like least harmful, it would just be doing nothing. But at the most
Right.
harmful, like say for example, you got a product that was not properly preserved and you had an open cut. Like you
Oh,
could
yeah.
get staph infection, you could get a bacterial infection. Like it's the same as an unlicensed med spa, right?
Yeah.
You can get hurt if you have a product that is manufactured in an unsafe manner and not preserving products in a safe manner with a preservative that's like the correct for the right pH, that's added at the right phase, which is the cool down phase when it's not so hot that it's going to ruin the preservative, that type of thing.
Hmm.
That's an essential part of manufacturing lotions and cosmetics.
Let's talk about preservatives a little bit
Yeah.
because I think that's really important. So a lot of people are very averse to parabens. They've
Hmm.
heard back, this is 20 years ago or
Yeah.
more actually, that maybe parabens are bad for you. So can
But
you
they
speak to that a
Yes,
little
but they
bit? I
don't
mean,
know
I
why
can
they think
too.
that. Right. Yeah,
Right.
they don't know why they think that. They just think they're bad. Well, so they found parabens in breast cancer tissue, which makes a lot of sense. They found a bunch of other things in breast cancer tissue, including fat, right? And
Yeah.
just because you find an ingredient or a molecule in a tissue does not mean it caused the breast cancer or the
Right.
tissue, right?
Yeah.
To have
Yeah.
issues.
I wrote a blog post about parabens many years, I mean, close to 10
Hmm.
years ago.
Same.
Because people come in and they're like, well, I don't, parabens are bad for you. Well, why do you think that? So the thing is, parabens are very, very, very weakly drawn to the estrogen receptor
Hmm.
but way less so than just like soybeans. So like, if you eat edamame, okay,
Or blueberries.
um, or blueberry, right? They have an affinity for estrogen
Hmm.
receptors, and so they're going to attach there. But it doesn't mean they caused it. Okay, edamame does not cause breast cancer. I can guarantee that. I believe that soy has about, I think it's 1,000th of the
It's a
affinity
very small
as
amount.
like
Yeah.
actual estrogen. Okay, and then parabens have something like around 1,000th of the affinity of soybeans. It's really, really minuscule, right? And there's no triggering of the receptor when it binds there. So it just doesn't do anything. Okay. So, but these articles came out like a long, long time ago. And then all of a sudden parabens became this idea of evil. But can you talk a little bit about what parabens do and why we
Yeah.
like them?
So one, I'm a huge believer in science and like following the science. So even when my like gut instinct is no, there must be something wrong. If the data shows that, and science is telling us that, and people that have gone to school for 16 to 20 years are telling us something, and they don't have
Right.
anything to gain from it because they're not selling a supplement line and they're not selling an all natural skincare line. I
Right.
tend to side on the side of science. And so what parabens are good for is they prohibit and prevent mold and bacterial growth. And that's really important when you have anything that has water in it. Everything that has water in it can grow mold and bacteria. Some mold and
Yeah.
bacteria, like penicillin, is beneficial. Most of it's not. Now, our
Right.
skin is phenomenal at keeping things out, right? That's why we need injectables in order to make our skin look fundamentally different. That's why
Yeah.
microneedling needs to happen to remodel our face, because the skincare stuff mostly is pretty inert. It doesn't get down to those deeper dermal levels. However, if you have a cut, an open wound, like just a tiny little cut, and you
Mm-hmm.
use a lotion that has bacterial or mold contamination because it wasn't properly preserved,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that mold and bacteria can get inside your system, making you very sick or leaving you disfigured. It doesn't happen often. That is, I mean, to even talk about it, it is fear mongering to talk about it in that kind of aggressive sense. But on the other hand, the small amount of times it does happen, it matters to that person, right?
That's for sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
parabens have been around since the 50s and 60s. They've been studied really long term. And what I like about parabens is you can use them on a wide spectrum of pH. So you can use them in a
Uh-huh.
wider range of products, and they have a good temperature stability. One of the problems with some of the newer preservatives that are, quote, more natural, they're not necessarily more natural, they're just people, they don't have the word paraben in them, is they have a lower temperature sensitivity. So if someone leaves their lotion bottle in a hot car, for example,
Mm-hmm.
their non-paraben based preservative gets less effective.
Right.
So I like to work with parabens for that reason.
Well, and those other preservatives, which you have to have, otherwise you're going to put moldy, gross stuff on your skin,
Absolutely. And
right?
it's illegal to sell product that is knowingly not manufactured correctly. It is actually illegal.
Uh-huh. Well,
Like
it probably, my guess is if it's anything like the med spa industry, people sell it anyway.
people do sell it anyways, and you don't hear a lot. Interestingly enough, if you look at insurance claims, the cosmetic kind of manufacturing industry is one of the safest industries in the
Mm-hmm.
world, but that goes back to the inert nature of most of what you're making. Like when I put olive oil and salt together in a thing and call it a salt scrub, you know what, it is going to take off the first layer of my skin, but it's not going to do a whole lot more. Maybe leave me a little feeling soft and subtle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what you see in cosmetics is pretty inert. And so it's, I don't want to say pretty hard to do damage. It's not
Sure.
easy to really mess that up.
Sure. I mean, thank goodness, right? And you were completely accurate in saying like skin is made, we have skin to keep the rest of the world outside of our body. So it
Mm-hmm.
works really well to do that. And a lot of things, even if you wanted to get them into your skin and do something different to make it improve, if you were to put that on the surface of your skin, it doesn't go anywhere because you won't absorb it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I've talked a lot about ingredients that we've figured out ways to improve or just establish any absorption at all. Like a lot of things, there's this really great molecule called glycosaminoglycans inside your skin. It's like these giant sugar molecules inside your dermis. And those, if you just take those and smear them on your skin, nothing happens because they don't get absorbed at all. Right. And so, but there's this one company that makes this analog of that molecule that is actually able to get absorbed. And that actually really, really helps your skin. And it's just, but it's science going into like, how do we get this molecule in and how do we make sure all the bad molecules stay out? Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's when titanium dioxide, when they figured out how to make it into a nanoparticle. Do you remember all the
Mm-hmm.
fear mongering around that? It's going to go into your system now and it's going to cause cancer. Titanium dioxide is bad now. And so everybody, kind of the natural purists wrote off titanium dioxide when it's been around for thousands of years and has been successful in making natural sunscreens, especially in conjunction with, say, zinc oxide.
Yeah.
And so the idea of molecules and size is super important for sure. And you see that with hyaluronic acid too. Comes in all kinds of molecule sizes. Sometimes it sits on top of the skin, which is why when you put sunscreen over it, it peels off, right?
Right.
Sometimes it goes just under the first layer of the epidermis to help plump the skin from the inside.
And that's the kind that we like to use all the time,
Okay.
like it will plump your epidermis. The thing about hyaluronic acid is it's not really an anti-aging thing in any way. it just plumps your epidermis. It makes the
Right.
epidermis
Makes
look
you
better.
makes you
Makes you
look
look,
good.
it makes you look good while it's there.
Yeah.
So no negative thing about hyaluronic acid. It's great, but I also think that people think that it's doing some anti-aging thing, and it's not.
Mhm.
You need to do other bigger gun things for that. But back to your earlier comment about preservatives, like one of the things about the newer preservatives that people think of as natural, which I don't really understand that differentiation, because there are parabens in blueberries, and blueberries are
Right,
really great for you,
exactly.
right? So I think there are in other berries as well, but it's like, you could just down a whole container of blueberries and not think anything of it, right? And you're
Mhm.
consuming that, you're eating it, right? So parabens in just like a lotion as a preservative, that sounds like a great idea to me. But the newer ones just haven't been around that long. Like
Right.
parabens have been around since the 50s. They've been studied and studied and studied and studied. Okay, like
Mhm.
we know about them. Like we know all about them, whereas like the newer ones we don't have nearly as much data on, right?
Right. Well, and I mean, and I want to be clear, Brambleberry sells it all. We sell paraben-based ones. We sell GeoGuard. We sell phenyloxyethanol. We sell the quote natural ones. We sell it all.
uh,
We sell essential oils. We sell fragrance oils. We sell synthetic colorants. We sell natural. Have no kind of real stake in the game in terms of what makes Brambleberry money. I just
mm-hmm,
know that from being in the industry for 25 years, and that like science is science is science. And I
mm-hmm,
would take a well preserved product any day of the week than something that said, oh, I'm paraben free, I'm phthalate free, I'm all these
right.
things that are free, but then accidentally get something that really either wasn't efficacious or have not shelf stable product in it. For example, ingredients like vitamin C is notorious for not being shelf stable, right? Or ended up accidentally, inadvertently introducing some sort of bacteria to somebody. All those
Yeah.
things are bad.
Yeah, agreed. What I always tell people is if you've got a tub with a lid, it means you take the lid off and now it's exposed to air, and
Yep.
you put your finger in it and you put moisturizer on whatever. Like a lot of moisturizers are in containers like that. Well, oh my God, there's got to be preservatives in that. Otherwise, it would be teeming with gunk. I mean,
Mhm. Well,
there's no way.
it's interesting. We help people formulate sugar scrubs that go into tubs. So, like emulsified sugar scrubs that lather up really nicely and are all like creamy on the skin. But most people, and technically, they wouldn't necessarily need a preservative because they're 100% oil, emulsifying wax, and either a salt and salt. But
Uh-huh.
on the other, or sugar, and on the other hand, people are putting these in their hot showers. It is a steamy environment. They are putting their wet hands in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we always recommend preservatives for that. It's better to be
Mm-hmm.
safe than sorry.
Right. I mean,
But
how long can something like that last? I know oils can go rancid and stuff. Like, how long would something like that last without the preservative in it?
well, it really depends. I mean, getting enough oil in there and enough water in there and enough contamination in there to grow anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably it's a lightning strike, right? Like Lush Cosmetics is famous for having people because they have a solid scrub that has adzuki beans or something in it, and they
Oh.
don't irradiate them, and so Lush is famous for having people have little trees growing out of their drain spouts because of that.
No way.
No, uh-huh. But like, how often does that happen? One out of every 10,000, probably. So like, it is like lightning doesn't strike that often.
Right, right. That's hilarious.
Hmm.
I mean, I think in my industry, I mean, that'd be a low chance, right? But if there were any risk of having some infection or some terrible complication, I would just be like, no, why
Right.
take that risk? No, but
Well,
that is hilarious, though.
yeah, exactly. Well, like Brambleberry, we sell seeds to go into scrubby products because they're pretty and they also do help to scrub, but ours are all irradiated for that reason. Now, if
Uh-huh.
you go to the
Gotcha.
anti-science crowd though, or the naturally crowd, they'll be like, radiated radiation. It's so bad. It's like, no, 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 no. It's
Oh my
just
God.
making sure the product is not going to grow in your customer shower. That's
Right.
important.
Right. I don't think that people understand the word radiation very well. I mean, obviously, as a former sort of recovering radiologist, I do think I'm a little bit of an expert in radiation. It's not you being irradiated. You can
Right.
eat food, it'll kill bacteria growing in it. So you don't have to eat the bacteria. It's healthy for you, right? It's not causing some mutant thing to happen in the food and therefore it's going to spread to you. That's not how that works. Right.
Yeah, that is 100. Yes, that is 100% true. But then we keep talking about kind of what could go wrong, and I want to focus on what could go actually right. Like when you're making your own products at home, so much can go right.
Uh-huh.
Like when you get to, for example, make your first batch of soap and you then have this beautiful handmade product where you picked 100% of the ingredients, the fragrance, the color, and then you get to give it to family and friends. Everybody loves to get like a $12 bar of soap, basically, that you handmade, and you handmade it for $1 or $2, right? Everybody loves that. Same with controlling your own skincare ingredients. We have so many customers that come to us because they have psoriasis or they have eczema or they have, you name it, some sort of
Mm-hmm.
dermatitis, and they only can use this type of oil, this type of oil, and this type of oil.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can figure out how to formulate for their skin. My dad has the #1 best-selling psoriasis soap on Amazon that I helped him formulate 20 years ago because he's a doctor and he had a patient that had terrible eczema and psoriasis. And he came to me and said, Anne-Marie, can you help me formulate a bar of soap? And I said, okay, sure. And then with the help of also some compounded steroid creams, it wasn't just my soap, the patient was cured. My dad went on to help this patient start a compounding pharmacy and the soap company. And then my dad now has like the #1 best-selling soap on Amazon for
Oh
that
my
reason.
God,
So
that is so
I know,
cool.
for
Well,
psoriasis. It's called Ontos, Ontos. It's called Noble Formula, Noble, Noble
wow,
Formula.
that is very cool.
It's
I had no
amazing.
idea.
And then in a total full circle moment, my niece has eczema, and then my dad was able to formulate with my help a product for my niece as well, which is awesome. So much can go right when you are exploring handmade products,
Mm-hmm.
exploring the kind of chemistry behind it. And then when you're at a farmer's market and you're buying from someone that's crafting handmade, say they're an herbalist and they have a goat's milk farm, they have goats
Mm-hmm.
farm as well, and they also grow their own herbs, and they're infusing nettle and comfrey into a balm, and you buy that product and then you buy their goat's milk soap, you usually are buying from a woman-owned business. About 97% of Bramble Berry customers are women. So you're buying
Mm-hmm.
from a small, independent, woman-owned business. And we all know that when you buy from a small business, all of those dollars always stay in your communities, as opposed to going to big multinational companies. And so there's so much good about learning all the ins and outs of this stuff that is way outweighs the scary stuff.
That is so cool. I mean, do you know your customers well enough to know like how many people, I mean, do people like make a living
Oh
doing
my
just
gosh,
that?
Dr. Kate, I had the best first 6 months of my year because I cold called all of our top customers and asked them questions via email and then asked them to talk to me on camera so I could figure out how we could better serve their needs as we're starting to kind of scale into different things. There was no rhyme or reason to anything I could possibly do that helped all of them because they all had such different paths to success. There was the woman who started 8 years ago in her apartment in San Francisco and only works with her mom. They have 200 stores that they sell to across the world, over $600,000 in revenue. There was the single mom
Wow.
who started a small soap company and now sells at 8 different farmers markets every single weekend with college kids going to all 8. She makes over $1 million a year.
You're
There's the
kidding.
no,
Whoa.
and there's the guy that started the beard oil company, beard oil for himself. All his
Uh-huh.
friends loved it. Now he has 3 stores in the South, and he still manufactures all of his stuff in his kitchen in a GMP safe environment, good manufacturing practices environment. I
Uh-huh.
mean, the inspirational stories are incredible. And like Dr. Squatch that just sold to Unilever for $1 billion, they learned to make soap with the Soap Queen like 10 years ago. So cool. And
That is really
it's
neat.
it is the most fun industry because we believe everybody's creative, everybody. And we believe that creativity is empowering. Creativity helps you lead a life of love. Like that's how I got into this business was I was stressed out as a correctional officer. So I started making stuff again to feed that creativity, to give me that creative outlet. And you want to talk about screen free time for kids too. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to get their kids off screens. What do you do?
Right. Makes sense.
Make some rainbow soap. Right. Yeah.
So if you want to make soap and then sell it in a store or in a farmer's market, are there laws about how that's done and all that? I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah. So
how do
let's
you
talk
know
about
about
the
that and
FDA.
comply to that? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the FDA just recently underwent something called the Modernization of Cosmetics Act. Cosmetics have always been regulated. Again, like I mentioned, we are one of the safest industries in America as by insurance claims. And the act had not been updated since like about 1957.
Oh my
And
God.
so,
Okay.
and the Environmental Working Group, which has done a lot of anti-science fear mongering out there, especially like around parabens and phthalates and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
They came in and they said, hey, we need to modernize our cosmetic regulations. And so a couple of years ago, the Modernization Act passed. So in order to sell your products, Bramble Berry, we had a paid advocate back in Washington, D.C. for about 8 years. The Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetics Guild also had a paid advocate. That's a fancy word for lobbyists. We
Yeah.
would go back to Washington, D.C. 2 or 3 times a year, testified in front of Congress, that kind of stuff. We were able to get a small business exemption. So you can sell your cosmetics and your products up until about $1 million before you have to do any sort of ingredient deck uploading or anything to the FDA. So if you're at home and you're like, well, I do have herbs that I grow. I do actually make this great arnica balm. I'm not making any claims. I would actually like to sell it. What do? You can actually make the product, follow labeling laws, right? There are entire books on labeling and it's pretty easy. You use international nomenclature or you use common names, right? In order of descending use. You put the net weight on there and you say how people can get a hold of you, right? Literally website and a PO box and a phone number. And then you can go out and sell, providing you have your local city license and state license, right?
Right.
When you get over $1 million, you do have to put all of your ingredient decks up with the FDA. All that means is basically if there is a recall, the FDA wants a database and they want to be able to actually do the recall. Like we're constantly seeing recalls for, say, bagged salad, for example.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, all this bagged salad from all these different brands is made by one company? Oh my goodness, what's happening? That's because one of the ingredients in the bagged salad was bad. And since the FDA has those records, they can do those recall notices. And so that's why they want those to be uploaded. But you don't have to worry about it till you get to be $1 million business. And quite frankly, it's awesome to get to be $1 million business in the sense that, like, yay, you, what a privilege to get to be $1 million.
That's a lot of soap.
You have to comply. It's a lot of soap. So literally you go out there and you follow good manufacturing practices. That's your hairnet. That's weighing out your products. You make sure that all your recipes are written down. So if anybody ever came to look, they could see your recipes. And then you make sure that you have your SOPs, which is a fancy way of just saying, how do you do this? How do you measure this? And written out, and get your licenses, label it correctly, and you are good to go.
That's amazing. So for people who might not know, SOP is standard operating procedure, right?
Yeah.
So we have for my business as well. So, I mean, well, those are kind of a lot of hoops to jump through. I mean, I know people who start businesses who don't even have a business license. So let's start with that, right?
Okay. Right. Well, it's interesting. In Washington State, we have a micro business kind of program where if you do, I think it's under $6,000 a year, you don't even have to register for anything, but that's Washington State. So it's all the different state laws. Yeah.
But different cities also have licensure requirements too. If you do.
Well, and the interesting thing about the SOP concept, like writing down each step, you're kind of like, I don't want to do that. But then you're like, I do want to do that. What if I get hit by a bus? Or what if I don't want to do this myself and I want to pay someone to do it? Yeah. They're going to need the written instructions anyway. So it just makes good business sense anyway.
Yeah. To make something reproducible, to make sure that your partner, should you take on a partner or an employee, knows how to do it, make sure it's standardized, make sure it's always the same. Can you imagine putting out soap that's like different every time you buy it? So people are like, wait, I don't like it this time, right?
I have one customer who asked me to make them 15,000 bars of soap over the next year. I'm going to release them to her in 458 bar batches over the next year. You know how that means replicatable down to the 0.10th of an ounce because she has weights and measures on her boxes, right? So yeah, totally replicatable. Now, am I going to personally make all 15,000 bars of soap? Probably not. I will probably be outsourcing some of that to a partner or to an employee, but I need those standard operating procedures written down so someone else can make that if I'm on vacation.
Right. Is that something that Bramble Berry offers?
Bramble Berry is getting ready to do private labeling. So I have two clients right now. For example, one of them I'm doing a squalene-based body oil, and to go along with our squalene-based lip balm oil that we duplicated based off of a Lancome product. So we looked at it and we went, we can backwards engineer this. Here we go. So we just sent out like instructions today, actually, for our entire customer base on how to make it. So the soap is a pilot project that I'm doing for this customer. And then the squalene based body oil is a pilot project. By the way, that customer, she was doing TikTok live, selling out of her TikTok live. So when she was let go as a DEI expert with the federal government during the latest round of Doge purges, she had enough income to support herself and is now doing that full time. She doesn't have a shopping cart. She sells on TikTok only, TikTok lives, and she has a specialty, which is squalene. That
Wow.
and then she buys her products from Bramble Berry.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh my
It's
God.
so inspirational. I love it. Like, you don't have to be a victim of circumstance. You can actually create your own destiny. Like,
Right.
her story just blows me away.
Does that mean I should be on TikTok? Because I do not. I hate TikTok. That
Well,
might
you
be
know
the
what?
only. It makes me feel very old because I'm just
You,
not on it.
you know the drill, though. People buy from people they trust, and they buy from people that are authentic. And if you don't like it, you're not going to do it.
That is
You
for sure.
personally, like Dr. Kate, you will not do it if you don't like it. So I wouldn't bother.
Right, right. Okay, I understand. I definitely think that that's true. And I do think that that's gone a long way towards both of our success, right? I mean, you're passionate about something, you really believe in science, you really love what you do, you love your product, I love the services that we do, and I could just talk about them all day. It's my passion. I just think it's super cool. And I think that even just being weirdly, genuinely me, I think I'm a very strange person. Like, I'm not a beauty person. I don't wear makeup. I don't do all the things, but I just love skin. I love caring for my skin and helping people care for their own skin. It's in my particles inside me, right? And that just comes across if you're authentic and you just believe in what you really are passionate about. So
Yes.
yeah. Is there anything about the kind of soap and topical industry that people should know or to look out for? Or is there any kind of label that like says like this legit, or like how do you deal with that?
Well, so first of all, I just want to remind everybody it is illegal to sell a product that is misbranded, meaning you lied about what's on the label. That is illegal.
Mhm.
And most people in this industry are good actors in the sense that they actually want to do the right thing. Every so often, like in any industry, you'll find people not telling the truth, right? In the bar industry, are they pouring you Caso Amigos, or are they pouring you some sort of well tequila, right? Like, you see it in every single industry.
Yes.
But it is illegal to sell a misbranded product. But a green flag for me with labeling is always a few things. One, is the labeling done in like descending order? Is water the first ingredient, which it always will need to be? Two, is there a preservative listed on it if it's a water-based product? Is it an effective preservative? Three, is there a clear way to get a hold of this company? Did they label it so there is a clear way to get a hold of it? The FDA likes to see addresses because they're really old fashioned with like snail mail. No one really does that anymore. Everybody does online stuff. But is there a clear way to get a hold of it? And then four, visually, when I look at the product, does it smell off? Does it look off? Is there visible mold? Like, those are the things I'm always looking for as a consumer with a really critical eye. And then I'm always really skeptical of claims that cosmetics and skincare products make, because it is it's illegal to make most skincare claims in the sense that the FDA they know that we cannot really fundamentally change the nature and appearance of our facial structure. It's hard for us to produce collagen with a skincare product. That's why we have to needle the SHIT out of our skin or laser it, or use Sculptra, which is a filler, right? That helps to create collagen.
People think of it like a filler, but it's an injectable that stimulates collagen inside your skin.
Right.
So
right. It's an injectable that stimulates collagen. Right.
Yeah.
So not the same as a filler, but like, it is hard to do these things to really change the facial structure and appearance. So if I see wild claims on a skincare product, I'm usually pretty likely to not buy it.
Right.
Because I know I'm just wasting my money.
Right. I think what's illegal, so the FDA requires that labeling and everything. I don't know what the laws are. I'm not a lawyer, but false advertising is a problem, right? So you can't make claims that are false or just unprovable, right? So that's the biggest thing there. And I think, sorry, go ahead.
Many brands, especially ones that you sell in med spas, for example, have the money that they have done clinical trials with like 89 participants. So then they are able to say 91% of people, like SkinCeuticals, for example, does this all the time. 91% of participants reported a decrease in fine lines in the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, right?
Right.
Once you do that kind of thing, then you get to make a whole nother level of claim.
Well, that's what I call medical grade. So, there's no official term medical grade. Okay.
Right.
But my definition is, did the company do trials that actually, laboratory studies or clinical studies that show that actually had some kind of provable effect? Okay. And then, and when, if they have, then okay, that to me is medical grade. That's what that means. There's like ingredient that has a proven effect, that the actual percentage, if it says, 0.5% retinol, it really is 0.5% retinol, and it has been proven in clinical trials to have an effect. Otherwise, it's not medical grade. It's like, you might like it, it might do something good, but nobody's studied that, nobody's proven it.
Yeah. Right, exactly. No one's studied, no one's proven it. Yeah, that is such a good point. And we have that in the essential oils industry. People have all kinds of grades for essential oils, and it's like there is no cosmetic grade versus medical grade versus right. Yeah.
Once, like 10 years ago, when I started my business, I went to some business networking meetings and met some essential oils salespeople.
Right.
And they made the most outrageous claims about essential oils. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And one of them was that it could combat or kill MRSA, so methicillin strep, Staph aureus.
doTERRA has gotten FDA letters about that specifically.
And it was doTERRA person back then, and she was claiming, that it could actually kill MRSA. And I'm like, where the heck are you getting that information? I mean, I don't know. So I'm very, very skeptical when it comes to any kind of claims. But so
I tend to also be pretty skeptical if it's multi-level marketing. I tend to be a little more skeptical as well.
Well, I mean, I'm not just skeptical, but I think all MLMs are kind of evil. If anybody has ever listened to the podcast, The Dream, it's so entertaining, and it'll be all about MLMs and why mostly people are victims of MLMs. Like in the beginning, they've drunk the Kool-Aid, they're selling it, they spend a lot of their own money trying to establish a business, and in the end, they end up losing money. 99% of all participants in MLMs lose their own money. They don't make a dime.
Right. If you're not early on, if in the upstream process.
One of the people who established it, and then you make money off of the other people losing all their money. So I think that's evil. So I just think that that's just wrong.
There's our PSA for the day, our public service announcement. Yes. Make your own products, do one-to-one sales, figure that out.
Right. Absolutely. So if somebody's interested in learning more about you or Bramble Berry, where should they go? How can they find that information?
Sure, yeah. So Bramble Berry is brambleberry.com. We're at Brambleberry on Instagram and yes, TikTok. And then on YouTube, it's soapqueen.tv, or you can look for the Bramble Berry channel on YouTube as well. And then me personally, my Instagram handle is Come Make With Me, because I love to teach people how to make stuff. And that's just kind of my personal stuff. So you end up seeing a lot of me and my kids and what day-to-day life looks like for an entrepreneur, right? Because that's what I am. I'm an entrepreneur, and would absolutely love to see people start creating their own stuff and learning more about just what goes into their skincare and what goes into the chemistry for making their products. And the best way to do that is to make them yourself.
I think I'm really curious about the hyaluronic acid serum. So I kind of want to go on and experiment with that myself.
Yay.
That's kind of neat.
Or come up to Bellingham. We'll do a crafting night.
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. I'm planning to come up there somewhat soon, because I miss, so you and I met through a college roommate, and I need to come up there. For people there and the rest of the listening universe, Bellingham is maybe not quite 2-hour drive from Seattle. So we're very close. Yeah.
We can craft it up.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so interesting, and I've learned a lot. Thank you.
That was great. Thanks so much for having me on.
If you've learned something and like what we're doing, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating in your podcast app. If you have a question or a crazy story of your own you'd like to share, please send an email or voice recording to info@drkatedee.com. That's DRKATEDEE.com. Or reach us through the website, medspammayhem.com. And read the book. Medspa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Thanks for listening. This has been Medspa Mayhem with Dr. Kate Dee. We are so grateful you're listening, and we hope you've learned at least one fun or possibly disturbing fact today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star review. And read the book. Medspa Mayhem is available everywhere books are sold. Links and more can be found in the show notes and on medspamayhem.com.